At a time when superpowers compete for dominance, a small Nordic jet quietly stole the spotlight over Canadian skies. It wasn't supposed to happen. No headlines, no public fanfare, just a quiet series of test flights, hidden from the glare of the world, where Canada's pilots would discover something they hadn't expected. The Gripen E was not only capable, it was extraordinary. In a world where the most expensive fighters grab attention, this Swedish aircraft revealed a power that demanded respect, and, in doing so, reshaped the way North America thinks about air combat. The world of modern fighter aviation is dominated by giants. The United States continues to invest in its fifth-generation fleets, Russia expands its long-range capabilities, and China pursues rapid modernization with every budget cycle. In this environment, Canada faces a uniquely challenging problem, defending the world's second-largest country, with vast, harsh Arctic regions, limited runways, and an increasing need to patrol remote areas. Historically, the solution was simple: look south, buy American, and maintain political alignment. The F-35 was long considered the automatic choice, a symbol of loyalty and technological superiority. Yet the Arctic does not care for symbols. Blizzard-swept airfields, sub-zero temperatures, and the vast expanse of open sky demand something more practical, and that is where Sweden quietly presented an alternative, one that nobody really expected Ottawa to take seriously. From the very beginning, skepticism followed the Gripen E like a shadow. Analysts mocked the idea of Canada considering a fighter from a country of just 10 million people. Critics insisted it was too small, too cheap, too simplistic. Some even laughed outright, suggesting that while Sweden could make reliable furniture or well-engineered trains, dominating modern airspace was a step too far. Many assumed that the Gripen E might impress on paper, but that in real missions, in the biting cold and vast stretches of northern airspace, it would simply fade into the background. It seemed impossible that a jet not designed with superpower funding could genuinely compete in this environment. Despite the doubts, Canada pressed forward with a series of test flights. What was intended to be a cautious evaluation became, instead, a revelation. As the Gripen E lifted off from those icy runways and climbed into the Arctic sky, pilots quickly realized that this aircraft behaved unlike anything they had expected. It was intuitive, responsive, and astonishingly resilient. Every control input translated into immediate action without resistance or lag, as if the jet itself understood the pilot's intent before the commands were even issued. The Gripen was not merely a machine, it was a partner. In a region where even minor mechanical missteps can have catastrophic consequences, this responsiveness was more than a convenience, it was survival. What truly distinguished the Gripen E, however, was not just its handling but the intelligence built into its systems. Its electronic warfare suite, previously thought to be standard for its class, demonstrated a level of adaptability that caught Canadian pilots off guard. When faced with simulated threats, like radar jamming, electronic interference, or even coordinated countermeasures, the Gripen did not merely respond, it anticipated. Systems that might overwhelm other aircraft were, honestly, just neutralized, redirected, or even exploited. Pilots described it as if the jet could see the fight coming before the enemy even engaged, a capability that transformed what had started as a routine evaluation into, well, an eye-opening demonstration of efficiency and innovation. The more the Canadian pilots tested the aircraft, the clearer it became that the Gripen E was designed not for appearances, but, really, for survival. Its lightweight frame, single-engine design, and compact footprint allowed it to operate from remote or improvised airstrips, conditions that would have challenged most modern fighters. While larger aircraft relied on sophisticated infrastructure and extensive maintenance cycles, the Gripen demanded very little. It could be refueled and relaunched in just a fraction of the time, maintained with minimal personnel, and flown in weather conditions that grounded most other jets. For Canadian operators, whose vast territory and Arctic challenges impose extreme operational demands, this was a revelation. A jet that could actually do what the mission required without endless support or expense. The climactic moment came during multi-role exercises that simulated real-world scenarios, including interception, electronic warfare, reconnaissance, and rapid redeployment. The Gripen E excelled in every category. It could switch between roles mid-flight with a kind of fluidity that, honestly, seemed impossible for a single-seat fighter. Intercepting a simulated enemy aircraft, the Gripen simultaneously collected and processed data from its sensors, coordinated simulated drone support, and executed tactical maneuvers with, well, just remarkable precision. Canadian pilots trained on high-end North American jets found themselves, repeatedly surprised by the aircraft's capacity to adapt. It wasn't raw power that defined this moment, but the clever integration of systems, sensors, and pilot support, all working together seamlessly to really maximize effectiveness. By the time the final evaluation flights concluded, the narrative had shifted entirely. The Gripen E was no longer an underdog, it was a validated tool, endorsed quietly but, decisively by the pilots who flew it. This endorsement carried weight far beyond the test flights themselves. Canada's internal deliberations began to shift, exploring new possibilities that had seemed improbable only weeks before. The F-35 remained a benchmark, but the Gripen presented a compelling alternative, one designed to match Canada's operational reality, not global prestige. For pilots who live in the Arctic sky, where long-range endurance, reliability, and adaptability matter more than stealth alone, this was a game-changer. Beyond Canada, the implications rippled quickly. Word of the pilot's assessment reached European allies, NATO analysts, and other operators of older Gripen models. Countries that had previously dismissed Sweden's fighters began to reassess the Gripen E's relevance in a modern conflict. Brazil, already operating the Gripen E, found validation in Canada's practical evaluation. Finland, Norway, and the Netherlands quietly reviewed their own Arctic capabilities, considering the lessons Canada had uncovered. Even military strategists in Washington had to pause. The Gripen E was not a threat in the conventional sense, but it represented a shift in assumptions. Intelligence, adaptability, and practical design could outpace budget and hype. The Gripen's hidden strength lies in its philosophy as much as its technology. While some jets rely on overwhelming size, complex support infrastructure, and advanced stealth, the Gripen relies on integrated intelligence, operational efficiency, and rapid adaptability. Its electronic warfare systems, data fusion, and tactical responsiveness combine to create an aircraft that performs with the confidence of a team member rather than a machine. Canadian pilots quickly recognized that this approach aligns perfectly with their own operational needs. Vast airspace, minimal infrastructure, harsh climates, and unpredictable threats. In this context, what critics called small and underpowered became exactly the qualities that made the Gripen E invaluable. Canada's pilots, in backing the Gripen E, did more than evaluate a jet. They confirmed a new paradigm. Effectiveness is not measured solely by cost, size, or political symbolism. It is measured by performance in the air, resilience in the cold, and the ability to accomplish the mission when it counts. By these standards, the Gripen E exceeded expectations. It proved that a well-designed, intelligently integrated fighter could rival much larger and more expensive aircraft while delivering unique advantages in flexibility and sustainability. The aftereffects are already visible. Canada's evaluation prompted renewed discussions on defense strategy, Arctic readiness, and fleet composition. NATO allies are re-examining the capabilities of their own aircraft. Countries considering new fighter acquisitions are now factoring in operational efficiency and adaptability alongside raw performance. The Gripen E's endorsement by Canadian pilots has created a quiet but undeniable shift, a reminder that innovation is not always about size, expenditure, or prestige. Sometimes, it is about understanding the mission and building a solution that fits. In a world where headlines are dominated by superpower rivalries and billion-dollar aircraft, the Gripen E has quietly proven that intelligence, design, and adaptability matter more than ever. Canada's pilots have given it their endorsement not through fanfare but through action. By flying it, testing it, and trusting it in some of the harshest skies on the planet. Their experience confirms a broader lesson for nations everywhere. Success in modern air combat requires more than spending. It requires thinking, planning, and designing machines that solve real-world problems. By the time the evaluations concluded, the Gripen E had done something remarkable. It had earned the respect of those who know what matters most in combat: reliability, adaptability, and operational intelligence. Canada's pilots, quietly but decisively, backed the aircraft. Their endorsement is not simply a vote of confidence in Sweden's engineering. It is a statement about what effective airpower truly looks like. In an era obsessed with stealth, speed, and cost, the Gripen E reminds the world that sometimes, the most powerful weapon is a machine that thinks like a teammate, survives under pressure, and performs flawlessly when it matters most. In the sky over Canada, amidst Arctic winds and vast expanses of ice, the Gripen E flew not as an underdog, but as a revelation. It showed that a nation of 10 million can outthink budgets worth billions, that operational intelligence can surpass raw expenditure, and that adaptability, really does trump prestige in the theater that matters most. And in this moment, Canada's pilots have spoken. The Gripen E is not just a contender. It is a fighter worthy of trust, respect, and a place in the modern skies. In the end, this story is not about Sweden beating giants or Canada defying tradition. It is about truth in the air. It is about an aircraft designed to work where it counts, evaluated by the people who, honestly, know what counts. And as the Gripen E continues to rise above frozen runways, Arctic skies, and global assumptions, one fact is undeniable: in a world full of high-priced jets chasing headlines, it is the jet that solves the real problems that earns the quietest but most meaningful applause. Canada's pilots have backed it, and the world is watching.